What's up? How you doing? Here we are, Sunday night, 8:48 in the p.m. Very nice, very peaceful. Not warm, not cool, just perfect right now. Perfect humidity, perfect temperature, and it's a little bit. I see a few, not clouds, but almost like it's fog moving in. I don't know what that means. It means something. Got a little bit of Starbucks coffee here from earlier. So, didn't do much today. Went for a little drive with the family and had a little bit of a meal at a restaurant. And then we went to Starbucks and got some coffee and we came home. That was it. So the other day, Friday night, I was at the movies. I saw that shark movie, Megalodon, Meg Ryan, and man, if Steven Spielberg had these computer-generated images back when he did Jaws, first of all, he would have had an easier time handling the shark because it would have been all animated and more realistic looking, unlike that fake-looking shark in the original Jaws. But for the time when it came out, the people were not desensitized to that kind of a shark. They looked at it and they were like, oh, it's scary looking. But in today's world, if you made a movie with that shark, it would be a B movie. So yeah, now they have all these sharks in the water. They look realistic. I mean, you look at them and they have all these facial features and you don't really see it as a CGI, even though it is. So anyway, I digress. While I was at the movie theater, they always show these previews, like 30 minutes of previews, and at the very end of that you have Nicole Kidman talk about how it's great to go to an AMC theater, and people now applaud when they see her. So one of the previews that I saw, ironically I should say it that way, but one of the previews that I saw was another Saw movie, which I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of these Saw movies. They're very clever. I mean, I'm a fan of horror movies in general. Just, I'm not like believing in that nonsense, but it's just the anticipation of what's going to happen next that keeps you on your seat. I mean, I remember when Jason there, Friday the 13th, and Halloween, Michael Myers came out, and you couldn't wait for the next one. It was like, let's go see Friday the 13th. It was a little bit exciting, and then they came up with a cool concept, Nightmare on Elm Street. I had a friend in high school. I met him before that, but he had gone to see this movie, I guess, I don't know, with his mother or something. And then that evening, I was at his house. He had one of those quiet houses. You'd go in there, everything was peaceful. His father was upstairs on the second floor. Was a big fan of sitting in a dark room on a nice, comfortable, lazy boy chair, sofa, whatever. And he would listen to the police scanner all night in the dark. I remember, we'd pass by the hallway to get to my friend's room upstairs, and his father would be in the dark. He'd have his headphones on and everything, and a little light from the actual radio would be shining on his glasses. It's like, that's a creepy guy in there. He wasn't creepy, but anyway, so that particular night I was visiting my friend, and he was sitting at the kitchen table, and he goes, oh, you got to see this new horror movie, it's awesome. And he was explaining all the details to me. And just by the way he was explaining it, I knew I had to go see it because it sounded so good. And I did go see it, and it was a very good movie, good concept. The worst horror movie I ever saw, and there's a friend of mine who will back me up on this because he knows about this, but the worst horror movie I ever saw was a movie called Basket Case. Awful, ridiculous. I mean, everything was ridiculous. The storyline, the acting, the actual creature in the basket case, ridiculous. But we went to see it, and then there was another friend of mine that was sitting kind of like the next row in front of me. And in those days, we would go all the way to the end, against the wall, to watch these movies. But anyway, he was there too, and he was watching it, and we saw, and they actually made a sequel to this nonsense. But yeah, that was one of our things. We'd hear about a horror movie coming out, and we would run to the movie theater. And in those days, you didn't have much time, you know, that you would know about a movie coming out, unless you saw the trailer a year ago or something, because we didn't have the internet back then. Nowadays, you get on the internet, and you'll see all the movies coming for the next year. But back then, we didn't know any of that. You were lucky. You're watching a commercial on TV, and you would see Friday the 13th, Part 7. So, but like I said, the worst one was Basket Case. Horrible. Then there was one, like I remember, it was called April Fool's Day. Some Santa Claus one I remember seeing years ago. Guy was skiing down the slope, Santa pops up, chops his head off. But now I saw in the theater that Saw, the next Saw, the movie Saw, is coming out soon. And I'm assuming you're on Halloween. But those Saw movies, very clever. You know, it's like the gain gives you a loss, because, you know, you might free your arm, but you end up losing a couple of fingers in the process. So there was always something with that movie. You were on a timer, you had to escape, otherwise, you know, a bullet would go into your head. But yeah, cool movie, cool dungeons. That was a big thing, you know, Halloween night when I was a kid. And 3 weeks ago, I was in Lowe's up the street. Well, not up the street, but, you know, close enough to be considered up the street. And I was in Lowe's, and I noticed that they were putting out Halloween stuff. They had all the mask things. They had the stuff you put in front of your lawn there in the front of the house. It was like, man, can't these people wait until at least, you know, the halfway through of September? But, you know, that's the way it was. And, you know, I lived in a neighborhood back then that had a lot of kids my age. Some younger, some older, but there was a lot of kids back then. And Halloween, when you look out your window, it was like hundreds of kids from all over the place. It kind of looked like what that movie E.T., if you see E.T., the Halloween night. So it wasn't even nighttime, it was daytime they did that. I guess in that neighborhood, daytime was when you went out Halloween trick-or-treating. But in my neighborhood, it was nighttime. It was like 7, 8 o'clock, you'd go out. And lots of kids. And then when I became about 17 or so, I started noticing that nobody was doing trick-or-treating anymore. It was like empty. And that's because everybody grew up, and the kids that were my age were too old for Halloween trick-or-treating. And then the kids that were being born, they were just way too young for it. So there was a few years of a gap. And then when those little kids caught up and became 7, 8 years old, then it became busy again. So, and you know, out in California right now, we go at night trick-or-treating. Every year we go at around 7 o'clock, 7 to 9, somewhere around there. And if the light is on, that means you're invited to come onto the property and ring the doorbell. If the light is off, don't go ring the doorbell. But it was a fun time. We used to have those ridiculous masks. You'd go to CVS and you'd get those plastic masks with the vinyl outfit. Came in a box. It was like $10. You know, now kids have these elaborate outfits, very sophisticated compared to the things we had. Go in there, you know, and grab a box and be like a Superman mask or Hulk or something. Yeah, times have changed. Sound like the old guys when I was a kid, you know. had a few old guys in my neighborhood. They would be like, yeah, when I was a kid, we'd go see a movie, we'd get popcorn, it was a dime. Now I sound like those guys, because I say, when I was a kid, a pack of gum was 15 cents, pack of gum. My school was right across from a variety store, and when I was like second, third grade, I'd run across the street before school would start, and I'd get some candy. And one of the things I would get was gum, bubble gum. And I remember it was 15 cents. And then it went up to 15, it went to 20. And then after that, it went to 25, and it stayed at 25 for years. I don't know what it is now, 10 bucks. But, you know, back then it was 15 cents. And I'll say that to somebody now, and I sound like those guys when I was a kid and they were old. That's what I sound like now. I mean, when I was a kid, movies, tickets, the matinee show was $2.50, and the regular show was like $4.75. I used to go to the movie sometimes on my own, like it would be a quiet, you know, Saturday or something, no one was around, and I'd go to the movies. I'd get on a train, and I would go all the way across to a movie theater, like, you know, 8-10 miles away from my house. And that's what I did when the movie Airplane came out. Had no idea what that was. I used to just look at the poster and make a decision. I'm going to see that movie. And that particular time I went to this movie theater, you know, quite a distance from my house. I still remember the theater. I think it's still there. And I picked Airplane. And I enjoyed it. To this day, I'm a big fan of the Airplane movies. I'm also a fan of the airport movies, Airport 74, Airport 75, I think Airport 77. A little bit ridiculous by today's standards. I think there was an actor on there, last name Kennedy, where in the first airport movie, Airport 75 or 74, he was the baggage guy, you know. Then I think he became the guy that tells the plane, you know, where to go with the flashlights. And then in the final movie, he was the captain. They made him a captain. They promoted him all the way from baggage handler to captain. And then you wonder why things go wrong, you know. But anyway, that doesn't happen. They don't promote you up the ladder. You start off as the baggage man, and then you work your way up to captain. So, but yeah, those were intense movies. Big 747, something goes wrong. I remember Helen Hayes was in one of them, which I am a big fan of, not because of her, but because of her son. I'm a big fan of Hawaii Five-0, the original, and subsequently the other one that came out, the newer one. I enjoyed that one a lot, but the original was my thing. And her son was on the original. So that's how I knew her, MacArthur. But somehow she sneaks on the plane. Something to do with a bathroom. She gets in the bathroom, the plane takes off, and she's on there. But yeah, I enjoy those movies. I think James Stewart was on one of them. James MacArthur. Big fan of Hawaii Five-0. A while ago I was traveling somewhere, and we went to eat at a restaurant at the location. Had my camera with me, and inside my camera I have my information in case I forget it somewhere or somebody, you know, finds it. They can contact me and say, hey, I have your camera, if they're honest. I had my camera under the table, and the restaurant was closing down, and we got up to leave after we finished our meal. We get back to the hotel room, and I said, oh, I forgot my camera at the restaurant. So I went back there, and somebody had brought my camera to the front. They had what do you call it, reservations area there, and there were these two girls, probably like mid-20s or so. And I said, did anybody turn in a camera? And they said, yeah, they did. Can you describe it? And I did. It's a camera. And they said to me, "Are you an inspector?" I had no idea what they were talking about. I thought they meant like because I had a camera that maybe they were like being sarcastic, like you a reporter or something. And I kind of nodded, not knowing what they were talking about. And they were looking at me all kind of like, I don't know, like I was some kind of who knows what. I walked away and I was like, oh, thinking in my head that was kind of like a strange reaction. And then I went back to the hotel room and it clicked in my head what they were talking about. Inside the bag that I have my camera in, there's a pocket where that note with my information is. And with that note is it's authentic looking. It looks real, but it's an authentic Hawaii 5-0 police badge. Looks real, like a real cop would have, but it says Hawaii 5-0 inspector underneath, kind of like, you know, whatever. And I had forgotten that it was in there. You know, I had it in there for something. I don't know, maybe I made a video or something, and I thought I took it out, but it was in there. And they opened up my bag, looked at it, and thought I was an inspector for Hawaii 5-0 police force. Now, anybody my age and older knows that Hawaii 5-0 is based on a fictional police department. There is no such thing as Hawaii 5-0 police department or state police in Hawaii. That's made up. As a matter of fact, there's no state police in Hawaii, or at least there wasn't when the show was on. I don't know now if they've added something. But yeah, she goes, you an inspector? And I was like, I said, I kind of nodded, I think, and I walked away. I didn't say yes or no because I had no idea what she meant. But what she meant was, you know, and they were looking at me like I was some kind of, you know, who knows, like I said, who knows what. And they thought I was a detective for the Hawaii 5-0 Police Department, which later on I found kind of funny. But I didn't laugh by myself because serial killers only laugh when they're alone. It's true. So yeah, it's been one other time where I left my camera somewhere, just a couple of times that this has happened, and I had a note inside the bag and I got a call immediately on my cell phone. They were like, you left a bag here, can you describe? And I said, yeah, I did. I just realized I did, and it's a camera bag. And I told them what it was, and they said, oh, we have it down here. Once again, it was a restaurant, but it's only happened 2 times. I will tell you a restaurant story though that happened to me with a boxing glove that made me sad that day. So I was doing my job, not at the restaurant, a separate thing, and I had saved up $200. Okay, I had saved up $200. Why? Because I wanted to buy 2 pairs of boxing gloves. I was big time into boxing in those days, and I wanted to get 2 pairs of boxing gloves. So I used to go and shop at Rocky Marciano's sporting goods store, and Alicia Marciano used to be at the cash register, and I used to buy stuff from, you know, that place all the time. And one day I had bought, and she was, you know, young back then, you know, my age. So I bought a bunch of stuff, and on my bag, on the plastic bag that she put some of my stuff in, she signed it, Alicia Marciano, and she put the date, and I kept that. I have since, you know, lost it with all the moving around. I don't know what happened to it, but I used to have it in my yearbook. It was in my yearbook, and then, I don't know, I lost it. But anyway, I bought those gloves off of her, and a friend of mine called me up, and he's like, you want to go eat? We used to go to this Polynesian restaurant in those days. It was about 8 miles from my house, and we went there, and I took out the gloves, and I was showing them to him. I was like, check out these gloves. Put them back in my bag. Got home, pulled the gloves out. I just paid $200 for these gloves, and this is a long time ago, when $200 was good money. And I realized that one of the gloves fell out of the bag, or I didn't put it in. So I go, the only place it could be is the restaurant, because that's the only place where I took them out. I call up the restaurant, and nobody could speak enough English to communicate with me. Everybody was passing me on to the next guy. The next guy was even worse than the previous guy. Nobody spoke English. I mean, they spoke well enough for you to order to the food that you wanted, but not enough for me to communicate to them about my glove. I was explaining to them I was just in there. Did anybody turn in one boxing glove? And it was like, I don't know. And they would give me someone else and someone else. At the end, I never recovered it. So to this day, and I still have them, to this day I only have 3 boxing gloves that I bought. And you can't replace just one, and I couldn't buy another one because that's another $100, you know, to get a pair. So that's the story about the gloves. And about Alicia, I don't know whatever happened to her, but Alicia Marciano, I used to go there, like I said, quite often, and 85% of the time, maybe 86% of the time, she was at the cash register. Good looking girl, yes, she was. Anyway, that's it. There'll be more in the future. So, ciao.